where we were talking of last week, where we talked a little bit about SSM. Okay, and we're gonna be coming back to it and hopefully, readjusting it, putting it in our perspective, and eventually making sure that we can make some sense of it. All right. So the idea here is hopefully that we're going to be, putting a lot of perspective on our studies. And eventually, what my goal is to kind of hopefully allow you guys to understand a little bit more about soft system methodology, understand how it applies to your, school, applies to your future, and eventually how you can put it in sustainability, how you can understand it in different methodologies on business, and eventually use it on hopefully on a day-to-day situation. So we're dealing with problem situations, and when we talk about sustainability, we talk about things that we can hopefully control in the future. Some things we can control in the future, some things we can't. Okay, and we realize that. We realize that nothing is set in stone, and the good idea here is that you want to make sure that you have a competitive edge in the real world. Okay, so the idea here is you want to make sure that you are going to sustain your company, you're going to sustain your products, you're going to make sure that your company has, something in the future to look forward to. Your company is doing something that is relatively economical, okay? And at the end of the day, it's surviving, okay? Companies need to survive. Companies need to, become agile. Companies need to be robust. And at the same time, companies also have to understand the virtue of making sure that, in the future, things are going to be easy, reliable, without any problems. Okay. A lot of times when you're into business analysis, business analysis, they want to figure out how we get to a certain point. Okay. We want to make sure that we arrive at a area that is comfortable, at an area that we agree on, and eventually an area that we can make profit. Okay, so when you think about stuff that you buy, okay, you buy clothes, you buy deodorant, you buy all these things on a daily basis. There's a process you go for. Okay, and that process wants to make sure that there's no mistakes and things are going the way it is. Okay, so that's where soft system methodology comes into place. And to get us going on the first round, I'd like to offer a video. Okay, I want to show you a video of just a review of what soft system methodology does, and eventually how you can use it in different perspective, and eventually collaborate with it in real time in the real world. So what I have for you guys, if I may, I have a video I would like to share with the group. As always, guys, technical difficulties are always in and out. So please let me know if you experience any problems whatsoever. I'm going to share my sound with you. I'm going to share my optimization with you, and I'm going to show you this video very, very quickly, a little bit about soft system methodologies and how you approach them in different realms. Okay, take a look and enjoy. And also, please let me know if you can hear it. Very, very important. Enjoy. Can you hear it? I hope.
Yes, Professor, we hear it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's about it. No, not nothing to do with our class defeating the grass stains, but definitely it's an important element. Um, Either way, we want to talk a little bit about how to group some of the ideas in self-system methodology. And when we identify problems, and again, depends on which school of thought you're in. Normally, I teach this for hospitality, so I kind of adjusted it for hospitality. But when you identify a problem, they exist in hospitality. So hotels, restaurants, resorts, catering, uh, special event centers. Okay, you find issues. Okay, and in hospitality industry, you can have issues, and especially in that industry, it could be solved using things like SSM. So when you find a when you find a problem, okay, and you're looking for a solution, you're trying to figure out ways that the solution can be sustainable. Okay, ways that you can do things without, harming the bottom line. Okay, which of course is profit, and making sure that you can do it, not just making choices, but also making sure that you have the relevant case for it. Okay, so the first thing you look for, okay, you look for what is the problem. Okay, what is the major issue upon us? Okay, what do we sort of need uh, to make sure that this problem does not exist? Okay, so the first thing you look for is the problem. Okay, you want to figure out what the problem is, and the goal here is that you want to figure out exactly how the problem was made, okay, where the problem exists, okay, how we got to the problem in the first place, and eventually how we fix the problem at the end of the day. Okay, so we're going to look about what the problem. Okay, the first thing we do is we recognize it. Okay, so for example, we recognize the issue that maybe customer satisfaction at a hotel is not up to par. Okay, so that's a problem. All right, that's a problem that in sustainability, we realize that in the future we may not have the same business model. We may not have enough customers coming to us, and that can be a big issue. Another thing is we're going to look at the complexity of it. Okay, so another big issue is when we look at sustainability. Let's talk about water and the usage of water in a hotel. Okay, the hotel is responsible for the heating, rent, the water, the hydro, and so forth. And if you look for another methodology, okay, methodology that is more critique, definitely it's a little bit more complex. Okay, how do we get efficient water? How do we become more sustainable? How do we make sure that our products are going to be in place? Okay, all these issues, they look very simple, but at the end of the day, they're very, very complex. They're very, very complicated, and they need to get a little bit more out of it. Okay, so a lot of times we have to understand what exactly is needed from us, how complex it might be, exactly the stakeholders who is involved in it. Okay, what kind of methodologies do they need? How do we get to the end result, of course, and eventually find a solution on getting these items eventually to the customer and making sure that it can be done properly. Okay. Another alternative is what could be a possible solution. So a contingency plan. Okay. Maybe the idea you had, maybe the problem we had, can never be fixed. Okay, it's an open wound. Okay. And yeah, you have bandages, but bandages are very limited. Okay. You have a short term timeline on the bandages themselves. And a lot of times when you look at bandages, they can only be used for a certain amount of time. Okay. So what we are looking for is we're looking for a problem situation. Okay. We're looking for a method, um, a situation in which we can be able to formally create a solution, but not just do it in a way where, okay, you have a problem with, customer service. Here's a fix. Okay, there's a lot of fix we have to do. The question is how do we do it? Okay, how do we get to the final solution. So a discrepancy between what we want and the reality is an important situation. Okay. So what you do when you start to group the identification of your problem, you use the SSM methodology. You look at the issue. You look at the complexity of it. Who is a stakeholder? What's involved? Who's involved? And the outcome or the alternative. The situation you want to do is be able to take the problem situation and make sure that there will be some discrepancy. Okay, discrepancy between what we want and the reality. We want a lot of things. Okay, and of course, when you look at companies, they want sustainability. Okay, sustainability means that we're changing with the times, but we're still making money, and that looks good. But the problem is that when companies change, and you probably seen it before, they make changes, and who doesn't like the change? All of us. We don't like change. Okay, and it's nothing new. When you look at change, when I change, for example, Blackboard, when I change, your apps, okay, some people like it, some people won't. Okay, it's relative to who they are and what they are giving us. So a lot of times when we start to look at self-system methodology, we start to understand that there is another reality. Okay, there is another case that we want to look at. And the goal here is that we want to make sure that this case is going to be relevant. Okay. Whoops. Sorry. Just going to get out of that. All right. Sorry about that. So we want to make sure that this case is going to be relevant. Okay. A lot of times when we look at the case, we realize that there's a problem. We realize we had goals in the future. Those goals cannot be met anymore. All right. So what we have to do is we have to find alternatives. All right. So the idea here is we want something, but then we have to look at the reality. Basically, it's doing an analysis on our wants and our needs. Okay. We want a lot of things. We want sports cars. We want luxury. We want numerous amounts of items, but we need things. Okay. We need survivals. We need, the minimal, the bare minimal. And of course, we need to get from A to B. Okay. So there's a lot of alternatives. All right. So for example, you're late to class. That's the problem situation. What do? You want to buy a car. That's the reality. And your goal is to buy a really fancy car. But fancy cars are very expensive and they're hard to get these days. Okay. So what we have to realize that our want and the reality are completely different. All right. Possibly you need for the meantime, okay, until you get that want with credentials and financials. You want to make sure you get something, okay, and maybe getting something means buying a used car, right? A beater upper, right? We call them beater upper, and especially in wintertime, people actually buy, used old cars to just drive in the wintertime. Okay. But nonetheless, then they sell it, and of course you can buy it, and they're not that expensive. Okay, they give you a good price. It's not that heavy, and of course, many people end up getting it. So the game plan is that you want to buy a car, but then you look at the reality, and then you realize, well, we didn't do a lot of different factors, including what about insurance? What about parking? What about the overhead, the maintenance, and so forth. Okay. So possibly there could be a mix of maybe, most of my classes are in the afternoon. I rather take the bus. Yeah, I'm gonna lose, a couple hours here and there, but the idea is that I can basically be able to, overcome some of the issues. And another good part is that maybe in the morning class, like an 8 a.m. class that we have, possibly you may want to decide that you may ask for an Uber, okay, so that they can get you directly, okay. So that means, of course, that throughout the day, you're spending roughly between I don't know, $8-10 for a round trip, and then 2 days a week you're going to spend between $20 to $40 to use Uber. Okay, so that's the discrepancy. There's a reality, and you've done a soft system methodology, but you never put it on paper. Okay, so when you look at discrepancies, you realize that something needs to be done. Okay, you want to figure out how. it needs to be done, and then you would want to address it, okay? And especially in a company, you want to address it with stakeholders, okay? Get their input, okay? See exactly how this particular um, entry is going to affect individuals, what kind of situation we're in, and eventually how to address the minimal things to make sure that everybody's affected. Now, especially in a company or even in a project, a lot of times you want to recognize all the stakeholders. Now, the question is, who exactly is a stakeholder? And again, coming from our knowledge of hospitality, you got a lot of people, quite a lot of people. All right. You got, of course, the workers, okay, people who are working in the hotel, at cleaning, concierge, customer service, management, and beyond. And then, of course, beyond the customer service, you also deal with individuals who are your customers, okay? The final users, okay? The people who buy into the hotel. Okay. But then again, your hotel is in a city, all right? And the city has a community. So the community plays an important role. Okay. So when there's traffic, when there's delays, when things affect people outside, even though they have never stepped foot in your company, it does play an important role. All right. And it does play a big factor on understanding and realizing what they are and how they get there. Okay. So we must understand all stakeholders and address them as need be. We want to make sure that we don't ignore them, okay? And I just gave you a handful of them, but we never really recognize, of course, our vendors. People give us food. People clean our sheets, okay? People maintain our building, okay? And they're not part of the company, but they are still important, integral part of what we do. There are stakeholders. And then we have the municipality, the government, different associations that we may be a part of. All of a sudden, the number goes way, way up, okay? And we realize that it's not just, an end game here, okay? There's a lot of people who are affected by what we do and how we do it, okay? So we want to make sure that whenever we do, especially in a problem situation, we want to recognize everybody. Okay, especially when it comes to projects, you guys will be surprised how many times I've seen a project where they recognize stakeholders, but then they forget a few of them. Okay, a few strategic ones. Okay, and it's gonna affect them really, really hard. Okay, a lot of times people are affected by it, and eventually what occurs is that they forget about them, and then they go into a problem situation. They do a soft system methodology, they do a rich view picture, they do everything all together that we're going to be talking about in the upcoming semester, and lo and behold, they forget one specific but strategic individual, and then it goes downhill. Okay, it literally goes downhill from there, and unfortunately, you have to redo your whole assessment. Okay. So when you look at the process overview, okay, we have four major models, what we call the typical pattern activity of a soft system methodology that we want to look at. When you look at a game plan, you want to find out what the problem is. Okay, so you write down the objective. This is the problem we're at. You want to find out how do we figure out the problem? Where do we get to? You model it out to see if the objectives, the needs, the reality could be met. Okay. Then you talk to individuals, and those are your stakeholders. You discuss with them about it, debate with them, see if you and they agree and you are on the same track. That you both are on the same page, everything's the same, and of course, you then after you find out what the problem is, you model it out, you hash it out, discuss it, debate it, and of course, you start executing it. You start defining what the situation is. You take a course of action, and of course, you make sure that your relevancy is going to be there. Okay, it's very, very important. Okay, it's very, very important to do so. The idea here is you want to make sure that there is going to be a critical line that will be made, and nonetheless, you want to make sure that everything is going to be in place. Okay. So finding out and making sure that you recognize what the problem is, you see how to get to the end goal, and you want to talk to people who are affected by it. It does help you. Okay, you look at different implementation models and ways to implement it properly, and by that means, you say to yourself, "Here's a problem. Here's the course of action that I want to do," and basically, this is the first line of defense. This is the first line of recognition that you would want to do in making sure that your outcome, your solution, your debate will be given at the same time. Okay, so you know not many people realize that you cannot just sit down randomly in the day. You're a business analyst and you're saying to yourself, what is the problem, and then you realize that maybe your company is perfect for now, and there's no problems. Okay, but you realize that this is a endeavor. This is an ongoing thing. So you want to do your investigative reports, you want to do your investigative studies, you want to make sure that you're doing a job out there that can facilitate, that can moderate exactly what is needed. Okay. Um, so a lot of times when you investigate the problem situation and you realize that, your company has a problem on sustainability and you want to track it because, again, it may seem today that it's good, but tomorrow it's not. Okay. And as I mentioned to you, sustainability is a very big issue with many companies. Many companies seem to ignore it. Okay. They seem to look at the profits, which is not a problem. Profits are important, but realize that these profits will erode, will go down if they do not do any task whatsoever. Okay. So you want to do an investigative report. Okay. And a lot of times, I'm just giving you ideas from different organizations. In hospitality, they want to save on food waste because it's costing them a lot of money. Okay. And again, when you expand, you want to make sure that, your other hotels will be the same, okay? The same quality, the same deliverable, the same kind of management. Especially even when you look at other companies, there are companies that expand internationally. So there are a lot of companies that do, self-system methodology and problem situations when it comes down to understanding maybe new markets. Okay, so they don't want to just sit in one market; they want to go into other markets. Okay, and especially when you're in an international company, you want to expand. Okay, so what they do is they look at the reliability about it. They want to make sure that your company can be sustainable, can be affordable, can be done without any problems whatsoever. So what you have to do here is you have to start to investigate the problem situation thoroughly, and make sure you can have a good game plan. So the idea is that investigating the problem is not just saying here's a problem, let's go crazy with it. It's actually putting some perspective altogether. Okay, so you're going to look at designing a rich picture. Okay, and that's one of our assignments that we're going to be doing: designing rich pictures. Writing, or drawing for me a rich picture, either on your computer or on paper, and then copying it and showing me exactly that you start to analyze the items altogether. A lot of times, there's a lot of steps to the analysis side. You analyze the situation, the outcome. You want to make sure that the analysis will fit your company objectives. You want to make sure that any analysis will be given a thorough understanding. Okay. And definitely, it's not just one analysis you do, but you do multiple analysis. Okay. So, first analysis is the recognition. Okay. You recognize that there's a problem, that there's an outcome. And the second analysis is to go thorough into details on it, okay? To make sure that, details, situations, outcomes could be made, okay? So you look at all these scenarios, you look at all these, parameters, and the idea is you want to figure out different analysis, you want to figure out different, outcomes, and definitely, back up you know, your beginning analysis, your intro analysis, to make sure that you have a good game plan all at the same time, okay? And again, the third analysis is always to investigate the problem situation thoroughly, and aim to be able to, you know, be more critical on the different situations and outcome, and eventually make sure that you have a critical path towards your success. Okay. So, we're going to talk about, the rich picture situation. We're going to show you a little bit more about what the rich picture can do for you. But what I want to do right now is actually show you another video about soft system methodology and understand a little bit more about how it helps us and what it can do for us, especially when we get to the analysis stage of our company and eventually make some dues with our organization. So again, I'm going to turn you over to my trusty YouTuber, and I want to show you a video on how to understand self-system methodology with, of course, some sound and, of course, with some closed captioning. I'm going to show you the overhead, and I'm going to turn my attention over to this video, the theoretical analysis that you have to do when it comes to self-system methodology. Enjoy, and give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Soft systems methodologies is about helping people
You can hear it,
solve
Professor.
complex
Thank
problems
you.
in organizations.
You're welcome.
They are complex because in a given situation, we are not always sure what to do, why, or how, or what the urgency is, or who is involved, who the stakeholders are, and what different views of the situation they have. We need an organized way of thinking our way through this. We call it soft systems methodology because soft refers to people. It's all about people and the way they think and relate to one another. Systems, because we can apply the theory of systems to relationships, objects, people, procedures, and resources working together in an organization. And methodology, because it is an organized way of thinking and it takes us through a process of thinking about where we are, thinking about where we might be, and what action to take in a given situation. Soft systems thinking is people-oriented and relationship-seeking. This understanding is represented by using rich pictures. When identifying systems, which will provide useful insights, the concepts of hierarchy, communication, control, and emergent properties are used. These systems are logically defined by constructing root definitions. These root definitions are used to create the selected systems conceptual models. The models represent different viewpoints which form a base for debate, which can lead to feasible change and then further to action. Some of the axioms and assumptions of the soft systems methodology are as follows. Problems don't exist independent to humans. Problems are interrelated and don't exist in isolation to one another. The worldview is equally as important as that of each individual. Solutions to the problems don't exist in isolation. Sharing perceptions, persuasion, and debates result in improvements of the system. And analysts cannot be separated from the problem. Hard systems look at how to best achieve and test the selected option development and analysis of the system. Systems are viewed as orthogonal entities, as systems existing in the real world. Hard systems are useful for problems which can be quantified and may tend to treat people as being passive. So, hard systems are not people-centric. The objective is explicitly defined and decisions are governed by fixed rules. Hard systems are statistically based on probability, and there are fixed inputs and the outputs are known. Finally, hard systems take into account unquantifiable variables such as opinions, culture, politics, and many more. The fundamental difference between SSM and HS is that Soft systems methodology tackles real world problems and is basically goal understanding, whereas the hard systems approach assumes the system already exists out there and is more goal oriented. The key strength and values of applying the soft systems methodology to human activity systems are that the methodology gives structure to loosely defined problems by identifying and focusing on a relevant system, therefore allowing them to be dealt with in an organized manner. Soft systems methodology provides a better fit between systems and people, as well as facilitates resolution of unsolved problems and issues. In this section, we define what an unstructured problem is and describe some typical characteristics of such problems. Unstructured problems are problems that require intuitive thinking, reasoning, and memory, and do not just have one correct answer or solution. Characteristics: unstructured problems are unusual, hence, in organizations, they are dealt with by the upper level managers. They are non routine, and the solution mainly relies on judgment and creativity. Their goals are vague, thus making them difficult to understand. Unstructured problems contain ambiguous or incomplete information and take relatively long to solve. The solution is mainly based on individual perception. The soft systems methodology consists of 7 different stages. Stages 1 and 2 are known as the expression stages, and this is where the situation is defined. The problem is still unstructured and expressed by the participants in a rich picture based on the following guidelines: structures, processes, climate, people, issues expressed by people, and conflicts. Checkland suggests that the best way of doing this is in picture form. It is therefore important to understand the situation in which there is perceived to be a problem. Stage 3 and 4 involves systems thinking and are commonly known as the root definitions of the relevant systems and developing the model stages. These 2 stages move out of the real world and into the world of systems. This is the stage out of which everything else grows. And that is why Checkland called it the root definition stage. And it's the unique
Paul Checkland.
and most challenging part of the methodology. The root definitions and conceptual models of possibly relevant systems are developed. The root definition, whereby a description of a set of purposeful human activities conceived as a transformation process. The remaining stages are again set in the real world, where action can take place. During stage 5, the ideal conceptual model is used to find similarities and differences with the perceived real world model. This stage answers the question, what activities should occur? Stage 6 involves recommendations for culturally feasible changes. And finally, stage 7 requires the implementation of the changes agreed to during the previous stage.
Created using Powtoon.
Don't look at Powtoon. Okay, but that gives you a brief overview of basically where our our purpose, our class is going to be taken. And I hope you enjoyed that little flick, because it did tell you a lot of things, and it was made really nicely because, again, they start to understand that it's not just a quick analysis you have to do. You have to do a thorough analysis. Okay, you have to look at the short term dependability, the long term dependability, and definitely put things all together. So definitely, the idea here is when we design rich picture, there's a purpose on it, okay? And designing a rich picture, and that's where we're going to talk a little bit more in the other half of the class. The problem cannot be easily defined, okay? So I think you guys know it the best, where you have an amazing idea, you want to run around with it, and then you explain it to me, and I'll be like, what? what are you talking about? I don't get this. Okay. It just doesn't make any sense for me. Right. And a lot of times, it's not you. It's the fact that, our brain is focused so much on, the big idea, and we think about, something amazing, but the reality is, we never put it into paper, right? So all of a sudden you have a business idea, you have, a character you want to build. You have, for example, other, mechanisms that you want to explore, and then you put it on paper, and you realize you have what we call a writer's blog. Okay, basically, you're stuck in your own, your own trance. You're stuck in your own situation, and unfortunately, you really you end up not figuring out what you really want. Okay, so again, rich picture is used to integrate information from various sources of point of view. So a lot of times it shows you different perspectives on paper by drawing it and being able to understand a little bit better. I use it all the time where, I have a circle, and then the circle has different hands like an octopus, to kind of understand, the major aim, the major goal that we want to do. So the idea of the rich picture is to basically be a more informal way to capture and maintain the major entities, the major structures, to make sure that everybody is affected by it, get people's opinions, people's viewpoints and situations, as well as a process of what's going on currently, and making sure we can recognize the issue right now on hand and any potential new ones that will happen. Okay. So this is where a company is right now. A company says we're doing good, we're profitable. However, good profits, good deeds, but what's next? Okay. And if a company doesn't have the what's next, it could be a problem. Okay. And you can look at this problem from different situations. Hospitality is one of them, but think about cars. Okay. Every single year, car companies does make the exact same car over and over again. Why? Well, the reason is, of course, is that they make it because there's a market for it. So take, for example, Toyota. Toyota makes a car, okay, for the sake of making the car, okay? They make the car because there's a market. Okay, they make a car because they know that a good handful of the market will need a new car, will be off lease of a car, will trade in their car, or their car would simply die out and they need to get a new car. Okay, so you have maybe about a million potential, especially in Canada, a million potential individuals that will buy a new car. And now the question is, how do you deal with them? Okay, how do you treat them? How do you make the product the same? Okay, and what they do is they just update the model. Okay, but they look at different situations. What's the next future of the model? All right. What kind of system do they need? How do we integrate their smartphones? How do we integrate, for example, security? All right. All these issues are huge, and we want to make sure that we have solutions for it. Okay, we want to put the latest technology. We don't want to put the old technology. Okay, I'm not sure if you guys know cars, but there's a car that was made in the Soviet Union, that really did not integrate change. Okay, it was called the Lada. Okay, and they were just building the same car over and over again, with really no changes. Okay, and of course they never really succeeded, and unfortunately, Ladas didn't do really well when they entered into the market, and of course they're not even traded very well at home. But the idea with Lada is that it's a basic car. We make it, you buy it, it's good, but it doesn't integrate new things, and they're always late on it. Okay, so airbags, advanced brakes, signaling systems, okay, integrated, entertainment system. All these things are not there. Okay, it is a very interesting car. You can add on a lot of things, but unfortunately, companies like Toyota, they integrated infrared, they integrated, visionary systems that they think about it today and then implemented 5, 10 years down the line. And the way to do that is the rich picture, who's available, how to get it, the reality, what's needed, and eventually do it correctly altogether. Okay, guys. So the timer now is 8:55. Okay. I would propose a break. Okay, we're in the midway point. Let's take a break till 9:05, and when we do so, we'll take a break and we will be back. So what we'll do is we'll take a break for the meantime, and we'll be back at 9:05. Does anyone have any questions for me up until this point? Anything that we can add here?
No, thanks.
Thank you. All right, so
I
let's,
do.
yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Can we get access to the slides?
You could. It's on the Blackboard.
Okay, thank
You
you.
see it? It's on, I believe it's on learning content.
Learning.
I put the whole thing on it, learning content,
Okay.
or they change it. Honestly, with the Ultra integration, they change it, but it's under learning content or
There's nothing on the learning content.
There's nothing. What about the other contents? There's another hold on, I don't have the information with me on it. It's Let me just check. Visible to students. Let me just put it on. Outline, course content. 1 second. Faculty course information. Check course information. It might be on it as well. Course info.
Okay, yes, it
Bada
is.
bing, I knew
Thank
it.
you.
If it wasn't,
Thank
hey,
you
if it
so
wasn't
much.
the learning content, course info. Thank you so much, Catherine.
And sorry,
And
Professor, excuse me, for the recording, all the sessions you added in that area, yeah? Recording.
are you recording or am I
No,
recording?
no, no, you're recording. You're recording.
No, I'm actually recording for quality control, but you again, you can record it. I'm not authorized to record it. So at the end, if you want to record it on your own, you're more than welcome.
Okay, so yeah,
Sorry,
so only
Professor,
they.
you mean that you are not putting your recording for us?
Oh, the recording, I don't record it. It's a live class. It's an asynchronous
Oh,
class.
because someone is recording the class. This is why I asked.
Okay,
I think
it's
you
recording
are
for
recording.
another thing. Yeah, I have to record it for another segment. But in most cases, I don't leave the recording on. There's no platform to be able to record it. So as I mentioned last week, if you want to record the class, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Professor, for you mean that the only the slide is okay for us to check, for example, last session?
Yeah, if you want to check out the last session, it is available on course information.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the timer now is 8:55. Let's take a 10, okay? And we'll be back at 9:05. And when we're back, I'm going to talk a little bit about the rich picture formats, okay? We'll integrate from self-system methodology to rich picture format and put these all together. So let's be back in a bit, okay? Please be back at 9:05, okay? And we will restart. Don't leave VR class or Zoom class. We will be back very, very shortly. Okay. See you soon.
And sorry, Professor, for the video today you show us, we can see it in that part in Blackboard.
I'm sorry.
The video that you show us today.
The video that showed us, I put it in the slides.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So I'll see you guys here at 9:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys had a good break and things are going up your alley. So we left off with doing a little bit of a review in the first half of the class. We were talking a little bit about understanding the different onsets of realizing self-system methodology, utilizing rich pictures, why we use rich pictures. So to give you a bit of a preview, maybe of a a previous methodology. Rich picture formats are a situation where a problem cannot be easily defined, fixed. It's very complex. So a lot of times we use rich picture that can integrate, data, can integrate information, people's point of view, and can have like an octopus effect where all of a sudden you have new hands going on and new ideas that could be aimed. Okay. So the purpose of rich picture format is to capture the data. Informal data, the main entities of the structure and the viewpoints in a situation that the process is going on and the current recognized issue of any potential problem could be met. Okay. So why do we use, formulate design in rich picture format? A lot of times the reason why we go into the rich picture format is we want to figure out resource deployment. Okay, we want to see what's available for us. What's our capacity? What can we do, and what is needed to be done so that we can hopefully understand the system, understand the integration, and be able to go from what we really want to the reality and make sure that we can meet those parameters. Okay. Um, Another important point is looking at the operational process. A lot of times, the operational process, even though it's well to do, we don't have the operational capacity to do it, and that could be an issue. Okay, that could be a huge situation. And a lot of times, whenever we're going to be looking at the operational process, we're going to look at different planning procedures, different ways in figuring out the planning outcome and looking at the organizational structure, looking at the areas of the outcome, and eventually being able to look at the environmental conditions, okay, and meeting those conditions altogether. So a lot of times when we make change, we don't make change for the sake of it. We make change because the company needs to make change, operational change. But we need to figure out exactly if we have the operational capacity. So it means, for example, changing a system, okay, integrating into a new system. It does take a lot of time, it does take a lot of effort, and it does mean that in some situations you have an outcome in which you are familiar with. Another time you have an outcome that unfortunately you may not be able to withstand. So in planning procedures, the goal here is to look at organizational structure, to deal with the environmental conditions that we're in, okay, to understand that, if other competitors, other companies are doing what's need to be done, for example, have a click and mortars, convert themselves, brick and mortar converted into a click and mortar, so have an online system. That is an environmental condition, okay? Other companies are doing it. We have to do it as well, okay? And then, we have to go and create a store on an app, okay? So we have to integrate Apple app, Apple Store, Google Store, and be able to integrate that all in our system, okay? And the reason we do so is we have an environmental condition. But now the question is, do we have the right resources? Meaning, do we have the right, programmers, developers? Do we have the right operational process? Do we have the right planning procedures, organizational structures, and beyond? And that's where the question lies in, okay? So we look at the mechanisms for monitoring and controlling the resource deployment. We want to make sure that we have the right tools, the right kind of entity to be able to do so, and hopefully do it correctly together. So I just want to show you a case study of a situation where self-system methodologies as well as rich picture format could be used and used in a way that it could help us in the future. So take, for example, a school. And in a case study, Peter Checkland and Richard Poulter, they mentioned it very, very well in their book. They talked about a newly appointed head teacher. So a teacher had a lead in a school for a high school, a secondary school, and she was looking at ways which has overspent its budget in the last year or two. She finds herself, because she has a new term in her first term, facing a lot of issues. Okay, so she realized that sustainability is a big issue. Where is sustainability? She was facing an issue concerning the provision of school meals. Okay, clearly school meals, meaning that we give meals to students. Okay, in some counties, in some regions, even in Ontario, they do offer school meals. Okay, as a subsidiary, but it does cost. Okay, and there has to be some sort of sustainability on it. Okay, especially right now when you look at it, you deal with inflation. All right, so all of a sudden you were given a budget of like uh, I don't know, $8,000 a month or some sort. Okay, $8,000 a month to run this system, but $8,000 was numbers that was done, years ago. And today we're dealing with inflation, and that number rose to about 10,000. All right, so we have to do something to create sustainability. Either ask for more money, which seems to be that, well, today we're asking for 10,000, tomorrow we're going to be asking for 12. But we have to figure out a solution. Okay. So currently, these are the providers by the county education authority or the regional education authority, like the Toronto District School Board or the York Region District School Board, education authority through their catering service company. The contract being renewed annually. And a member of that company who is leaving to set up her own catering company urges the head teacher to make a contract, which might seem a little bit off, with her instead of the county, suggesting that the school could save money on this. All right. So all of a sudden, somebody who is dealing with catering, okay, a member of the company, they're setting up a new company, and they're telling the teacher, listen, set up a long-term contract with me. I'll save you money. All right. And again, we're looking at sustainability, because again, if you're only given $8,000 a month for this project, you're looking for ways that you can kind of, mitigate this. Okay. So based on the findings, the head teacher contacted the members, and some staff members agree that this is a good idea. All right. Keep the price low and you'll be okay. All right. For the meantime, but others want to stick with the status quo. Some parents alerted by the fact that there's a national debate about school meals. They want more nutritious meals as long as they don't cost more. Students say we like burgers and chips, which kind of it's counteract to the parents. Parents are saying, listen, I want healthy meals according to the national debate about school meals. And students who are stakeholders, okay, they want burgers and fries, which it's heavily saturated and fat and oil and God knows what. But the school governor are discussing the issue, and the chairman himself, managing director of a catering company, is urging the head teacher to be entrepreneurial and take on responsibilities for the provision of school meals, believing this could be profitable for the school now. So all of a sudden, what has occurred here was a couple of things. Okay, you have a lot of stakeholders. Okay, you have the head teacher who has a lead. Okay, you have the school board. Okay, that gives you the money. They're your sponsor. You have the catering company, and now you have somebody in the catering company setting a new company that's persuading the teacher to sign a new contract. Okay, then you have members who are working alongside the head teacher. You have the school board. You have the parents. Okay, parents that are telling you that I want not only a school meal, but I want healthy school meals, school options. Okay, I don't want to give my t- my stu- my kids snacks and sugar and highly saturated fat. I want nutrition. All right, which now is a little bit complex. And meanwhile, you also have students that are saying the otherwise. Students want burgers and fries, tasty food that they can indulge into. So you have so many players. You have the chairman, you have the director, You have, of course, the school board. You have the vendors that are giving the money. There's so many players, and we have to look at the case study and figure out how this is going to be done. So the way we start to look at the first analysis is we want to look at who and what we're looking at exactly. So number one, we look at resource deployment. Okay, we see that we have specific time and money on our hands and want to use it. We look at the operational process, okay, provision of the school nutrition. Okay, we want to make sure that we have a certain mandate that our goal is to make the students healthy and give them good options. Okay, so that is a mandated that we want to put in. We want to have a planning procedure because again, the budget cannot be changed. Okay, so unfortunately, $8,000 is what was given, and you have to play around it. You have to play around that budget because it's not going to go high or low. So you deal with the planning procedure, the budget, and then you deal with the organizational structures, the stakeholders, okay? The school, which is a stakeholder of getting the food, and the catering companies, okay? The catering companies will give us the food and will make sure that we get what is needed. Okay. Then, of course, beyond the planning procedure, which is a budget, operational procedure, which is bringing the food to the students, and resource deployment, time and money. You also have to think about the environment you're in. Okay, the environmental conditions. Okay, you have to think about your staff that's going to be working on this, students, parents, and of course the local authority, the superintendents. Okay, so again, if nobody's happy on this, somebody's going to be dealing with this in the future, and we want to figure out on how they are going to be dealing with it. So there's a lot of mechanisms for monitoring, controlling the resource deployment. Okay, you have school governors who put this in place, and they can give us a lot of choices altogether. Okay, so when you look at the rich picture format, okay, when you start to draw out exactly how this is going to be, handled, rich picture format can give you a better option. Okay, and the reason why I like Rich Picture is that it gives you this whole case where you have different playmakers. It gives you a case where you take it and you're able to kind of adjust on the environment. Okay, you're adjusting on the environment on where it is. So under the case study, all of a sudden you have yourself, your county schools, your regions, your region educational authorities, and they have a mandated with the catering services. Okay. Meanwhile, okay, you still have a setup fee where you have new school dinner company that says, I want to be part of it. So you put a new arm. A new octopus arm on it, and you say to yourself, well, you know what? We can work with the original company that is hiring the price, or we can set up a new one with a company that wants to deal with it. But the problem is we don't know who they are. Okay, it's a little bit of a tricky slope to trust them. All right, to get them on board. All right, so a lot of times, you're encouraged to sign a new company, but the problem is, are they regulated? Do they meet our compliance? There's all these small issues where it can really trickle down into big ones. Okay, so you're a new head teacher. Okay, you're the one with the hat and the books and the God knows what you have on your hand here, maybe a box and a briefcase, and you ask yourself questions. Okay, ask questions. Do the meals should be made in house? Should we make a new contract? Okay, and with whom? Is it the legitimate contract? Would they leave us in the middle? All these kind of questions should be met. Okay, should we keep the status quo? Should we just be able to take it as is, do some cuts somewhere else, and maintain this program? Or should we have different costs in quality? Should we reduce the quality? Should we look for any, where the power lies? Should we decide on fixing it altogether? And again, when you sign up with a new individual, you deal with the encores, okay? You deal with students in the body, where again, they're stakeholders as well, and you have to treat them the same way. Parents are saying we want nutrition, but cheap dinners for our kids. All right. So all of a sudden, the parents, they have their own agenda. They're saying to you, well, having nutritious meals does cost a lot of money, uh, and we cannot simply, budget a nutritious meal at the same time deal with the inflation that's going on with food. Okay, so the school governor says that you have to be entrepreneurial, and we put it down below, where you have the chairman and you have individuals of a school dinner company, director of the company that says, well, you know what, think outside the box and be more useful on it. So you have school governors, the superintendent, the regional head of the school that will come in and be able to give you a better choice. And of course, like you have the parents. Parents are important, but don't forget, you still have the kids. I quote the kids. We like burgers and chips for dinner and lunch and breakfast and God knows when. So all of a sudden, children are saying to you, "No, keep the original thing, and we want a better meal." Because again, if the children do not eat um, good meals, what's going to happen is that they're going to be dealing with a lot of different situations where all of a sudden you're making food, it's going to go to waste, and now there's another sustainability issue where all of a sudden you gave them nutrition. According to parents, students are saying yuck, and I do not want it. Okay, so it does build a lot of different issues, and especially for school diners. Half of the people are saying we want the status quo, meaning I want to keep it as is. I don't care about changes. We're liking what it is. Other people says I want change. So you're kind of in the middle. Okay, you're kind of in the middle of saying to yourself, if I was giving a budget of $8,000 and I need 10,000, we have to find a way that we can still keep the program, or make changes with the program to be able to take this all together. And another important part that we mentioned here is the annual contracts. Okay, so it's going to go up. You have the school meals. Okay, and what occurs here is you have expenditures and income. And the goal that you want to be putting here is being able to hopefully rely yourself on different expenditures and income to make sure that the school is getting what's needed, and of course the area is being what is given. Okay, so again, rich picture situation does describe the text. So basically what I've done is I've taken the case study. Okay, I've put it into the word that it's being given, and then I thought to myself, well, in explaining it to other people and breaking apart the what ifs, this is a good situation that we can hopefully build ourselves to make sure that we can create a situation for us in making sure that we have the right analysis and the right situation. So what we have done right now is we sat down in a boardroom. We looked at the core of our company. We looked at the different onsets that the company has, and what we have done is we converted our specific as our specific case study. We converted our case study all into a rich picture format. And now the game plan is that we're going to be analyzing it. Okay. We're going to be breaking apart, deciding should we join the chain? Should we not? Should we listen to their parents who don't eat the food? Should we listen to the kids who have, for all we care, they want candies and fries all the time? Who should we listen to? Should we keep the current company? Should we not? Should we, jump into the school governors? How does expenditure come in? And again, you as a new head teacher have to come in and we have to analyze your approach. Okay. So when you start the analysis is better yet known as an intervention. The three basic elements of the intervention include number one, that we look for, a brief overview of what happens. So again, we just don't, draw all together the situation. We come together and hash it out. Okay. And in the three basic elements of the intervention, we look at the methodology on getting to a solution. And again, the solution is, well, we have so many different opinions on it. Which one would you want to take and go into? Okay, so that the process would be easy. We then use that methodology by the practitioners, okay, people who are the stakeholders, to be able to implement it. Okay, put it all in perspective, make sure that we understand it a little bit, and eventually get it hashed out without any problems. And we look, of course, for the problem situations, okay, making sure that the different problem situations will be taken care of. Okay, different problem outcomes, problem situations will be dealt with all together. So we look at the different problems and we get to a solution out there. But we want to make sure that any changes, even the basic changes for food in schools, could be handled properly. Okay, so we realize that we cannot get everything. Okay, there's a good chance we're not going to get $10,000 a month for this budget. So we also realize that parents have high expectations. We realize that the governors are telling us do what you want to do. Okay, but I'm going to monitor you guys. And also we realize that we have a choice. Okay, so we have to exhibit all these items methodically and create a system that says to us if we go with one option on sustainability of the specific program, we want to make sure that it can work. We want to make sure that it can be done easily without any problems, and eventually create a problem situation where we can come in to a certain role that we are comfortable with. Okay, so when you look at all these items all together, you are a practitioner and you look at the role of a practitioner. Okay, so you're kind of becoming a devil's advocate a little bit, sitting down and deciding on whose opinion it should be. Okay, and you're intervening. Okay, in the problematic situation, you're looking at the soft system methodology. Okay, and looking at the perceived content of the situation, being able to understand the soft system methodology that you put all together, how it was done, being able to look at the different roles, okay, from the practitioner side, people who are going to execute it, okay, the school, the caterers, and so forth. You're going to be looking at their practitioner side, how to carry out the intervention using soft system methodology. And of course, you have choices. You can choose and name the individuals, okay? You look at the different roles, okay, issues of ownership, and they go in any possible personas, any possible individuals or a group of people who will look at the issue and address it appropriately. So in the first analysis, you list all the issues that the owner might have, okay? And when you list all the issues that the owner might have, okay, on how it could be done, okay, so in the case of hospitality, you look at the capacity you have with your your workers. Okay, they're the practitioners. They're the one who are setting guidelines and the agenda. This leads to ideas about relevant worldviews, leading to ideas for relevant models. Okay, and then of course you deal with different roles. Okay, clients that causes the intervention to actually happen. You want to make sure that there can be an outcome that is going to be appropriate, an outcome that you would want to do. Okay. And from there, that point on, you want to look at the client side. Okay. How will the client adjust to this change? How will the client adjust to this analysis? Okay. What are causes that intervention will happen with the client? Okay. The person who actually consumes the item. So it goes into kind of a cycle that you look at different roles of the practitioner and how it leads to ideas about, what is the worldview happening, what is the norms, what is the acceptable model, as well as the ideas for different relevant model ideas that you want to put all together. And from there, of course, you look at the client and eventually you implement different analysis. Okay. So the role of the practitioners is actually the first step that you go into, and then you hopefully look at the view of the problem from the practitioner side, and then analyze it a little bit further. Okay, so you look at problem situations, and inside problem situations, the goal is you want to ask, based on the soft system methodology, how do you address the content of the issue? In this case, you look for the content of, food programs at school. Can we do it? Can we not? Is it feasible? Can we be able to overtake it? And then, of course, you look at ways that you will carry out the investigation to improve this situation by using the methodology of soft system method. Okay, you look at different problematic situations. Okay, and then from that pinpoint, you're going to be able to actually study and understand a little bit more about who's concerned with it. Okay, the C's. Okay, basically who's the practitioners, who's concerned with it, and how we are able to understand the different outcomes, problematic content. Okay, so you can use soft system methodologies to address how to do the study, and then look at problematic situations from the practitioner side that says, well, there is things I could do, there's capacities I can take, other things I cannot do. All right, and as a result, there are ways that you can focus on it. Okay, so once you have accomplished rich view pictures, you do your analysis, okay, and you start to look at what the capacity of the practitioner, the budget, and the reality should be put in place. You then start with the analysis part two, which looks at the outside, okay, the social side. Okay, now you're starting to have a clear agenda, okay, a clear idea on who is going to be affected about the intervention that's taking place. So you look at different roles, okay, both informal, formal roles. You look at the governance that you want to do, the norms you want to create, the values you want to do, and then you start to analyze that all together. And this is a really important part of the analysis, because when you look at sustainability, especially with food and waste, a lot of people are very conscious about it. Okay, a lot of people are very conscious about the fact that there's a lot of waste going on with food. We waste food. We don't, protect our ecosystems. We don't do a really good job altogether. And as a result, whenever we assess, the norms and the adjectives, we want to have a clear idea about what's taking place in the beginning. Okay, so each arrow, of course, means that we want to create or recreate, and that's where you guys come in, where it's kind of a nonstop enterprise. Okay, where um, I kind of like to think of it as sports, okay? Where, when a team wins a championship, okay? As you can tell, I'm a very much of a sportsman individual. I follow the NBA. I love the NBA very much, and I follow, the lovely game. But somebody's going to win the NBA title, the NBA championship. And when they win, they don't just sit there and say, "Hey, we won. That's good." They look at the value of winning. Okay, there's a lot of values that come into it. Okay, more seats are going to be sold. Value of the team is going to go up. This is going to be good. But then, of course, players that win a championship, we call them winning a ring, like a wedding ring, a wedding band. They get better value. Okay, they create they used to cost $10 million. All of a sudden their agent calls them and says, hey, congratulations, you won the NBA title. You should be asking for 20 million. Okay, so all of a sudden there's going to be new sense of purpose and new ideas, and the outcome is that you want to make sure that there is going to be some sort of way that you can create and recreate that structure. Okay, so you look at the rules, the forms, the norms, and then hopefully, based on the self-system methodology model, you're getting a better idea of the social texture of the human situation. Okay, so think about the impact that a championship will have for the town, the city. Okay, the people, the fans, the admiration of the franchise. Okay, so what's going to happen is that when you get a clear idea about what's taking place, you then assess the social norms of the reality, because again, when you win a championship, you want to contest it, you want to contend it, okay, and you want to make sure that in the next season you win again, okay? So you don't just sit there and say, "Hey, we won." That's good, all right? That is good. I'm not saying a championship is not good. Normally, a team will take a break, celebrate. Okay, so as you can tell, they're when they win a championship, they're drenched with champagne, and they smell like alcohol. And then they celebrate. The owner takes a team, to a very luxurious location, buys them rings with a lot of diamonds and golds, and then we're done for the season. Are we done? Question mark. No, we have to assess the social outcome, because, you know, there were other teams in the league as well, other teams that wanted to win the championship. So it wasn't just you, it was other people, other individuals. So they are sitting down right now and they're having a game plan. Okay, what should we do? Who should we buy? What kind of cap should we be in? And we assess the social outcome that, you know what, in the future, we won a championship, but we don't want to be like the Toronto Maple Leafs, sorry for the insult there, to actually not win a cup for now 55 years. Okay. There's a reason. Okay. So we look at the rules, we look at the governance and the value. And clearly, fortunately, when you do a rich picture format, if you ever want to do one for Toronto, you realize that the reality encompasses people with diverse culture norms. And you realize that some people have left, the fan base for Toronto, and unfortunately decided, well, there's no need to be a fan anymore. Okay, so some people left, and more people came in, and of course, you have the strong fan base, and I believe that one of the biggest problems is that the strong fan base is creating that issue, that social dilemma, where you tell people, regardless of win or lose, we still make profit. Okay, and that unfortunately, is really hard to take. So, a franchise like the Toronto Maple Leafs, they end up, simply not winning, but being stable for years and years and years. Okay, and unfortunately, it may be sustainable now, where they sell out almost every home game that they have, but in the future it will turn out to be very unsuccessful. Okay, and later on there might be sustainability issues. Okay, what happens if we put a new franchise in Toronto? What happens if the fans leave? Okay, there's no interest anymore on sports in the GTA. What do we do? Okay, so all these become a big issue, and when we do the analysis, we look at the analysis from different viewpoints. Okay, we look at the interacting roles, okay, that we have. Okay, we look for example, the norms, the values, and the roles, informal, formal roles. But in analysis too, we interact with the roles on how governance of the company and the values of the company will characterize the different situations that we're in. Okay, sometimes, of course, when we're not doing really well, and I'm using other teams as well, they come up with solutions. Okay, a 2-for-1 deal. Sometimes even, again, we're talking sports, and I kind of always blush when I talk sports because I'm quite the sporty fan. But one of the stories from hockey is that the Phoenix Coyotes in the NHL, they didn't get approval to expand their arena. Okay, they share the arena with the Phoenix Suns of the NBA, and they need a new arena, and they requested an arena, or else they're going to leave. So the value was, if you don't give us a free $400 million, $1 billion state of the art facility, we're going to walk away from your city. And they put that to the test. They talk to stakeholders, okay, and they look at the governance from the stakeholders and the value that a new stadium will give us. They look at the roles and they realize that no, it's not going to happen. So what's going to happen now is that they wrote a very vague but thank you letter to the city of Phoenix in Arizona, thanking them for their hard work. But fortunately, the real world problems persisted, meaning that they did not get approval for a stadium. And as a result, from analysis and perception, they might leave the city. Okay, so they might move somewhere else. Where, you ask? Well, there's a lot of locations. Maybe Quebec City in Quebec. They might leave to Ontario. Okay, Hamilton might be a good spot for them. Let's look at Saskatchewan, maybe, possibly Portland. Okay, the Portland Coyotes, maybe. But you look at real world problems. Okay, and in the analysis too, it gives you a better yield to form a reflection. Okay, to understand, well, this is the outcome. This is what we need to do. So when we look at norms, the expected behaviors associated with a role is very important, and based on what's expected, from us, we build values around that. Okay. And the criteria values is behaviors that are being judged. So clearly, when a city refuses your commandments and refuses to deal with you, what's going to happen is that you deal with different behaviors and they're judged. Okay. And all of a sudden, the knee jerk effect is that thank you, but no thank you. We're going to leave. All right. And they're going to leave somewhere else. And, there's a lot of potential suitors for it. The question now is where they're going to go. All right. And we can only tell when the rumors will start to dry out. And eventually we're going to have some real breaking news about potential outcomes of this analysis. Okay. So when you look at the roles, social positions that hopefully differentiate from one member to another in an organization, it does play an important role for us. Okay. So again, a lot of times we look at the different roles and the outcomes, and based on those roles and outcomes, we want to make sure that one member or another will look at those norms and realize what is needed. Okay, so a lot of times when we look at those roles, we look at different situations and how to differentiate from one member to another in the organization, and definitely we can analyze those outcomes altogether. Okay, what you look at the roles, what you look at the characteristics, the situation, and especially how you analyze these all together. The reason why I brought sports a little bit, and especially with the Phoenix, is I want to give you a real world outcome here, and the real world outcome said to you that there are situations that will bind us. Okay, and based on those situations. The outcomes tell us that we have to create a outcome that fits our agenda. Okay, so a lot of times when you look at the last analysis that I showed you, the last analysis is the analysis of power and political power. So a lot of times we still talk about the roles, okay, and the real world problematic situations, okay, but in analysis free, you yield for better reflections. Okay, so you're now looking at what commonalities, commodities of power is here, what you have obtained, okay, after your analysis, what you could have done, what you could have used, okay, what you could have defended, and also what you could have passed on. Okay, so some of the items you have to relinquish, some of the items you have to keep, and other times you have to create a way to accommodate things. Okay, so possibly maybe there could be a situation where Phoenix Coyotes still stay in Phoenix. Okay, how can that be? Well, you can accommodate different interests. Okay, and maybe a new stakeholder comes in and says, well, you know what, if we're missing between what the government gives us and what is needed, around maybe 200 million, I'll bring in some potential investors. It might cost us, but it's a good way to hopefully accommodate different groups. Okay, there is a group out there that still wants to keep the Phoenix Coyotes in Phoenix. Okay, so we have to look at this position of power and the processing of leveraging these powers all together and locating the disposition of power and the process for as we go forward. Okay, so based on the basis of power, we give you personal network and knowledge as well as reputation. Okay, and some people have personal opinions on the outcome. Some have different networks, political networks that they can utilize, and different knowledge bases that they've been around this sort of outcome and can give us a better outview of what it needs and how it needs to be done. Okay, so based on reputation, based on different knowledges, we can come together and eventually complete a good analysis on what the situation is, what the outcome is, and so forth. So just to recap, in our class, what we have done throughout, today's lecture is I've started to introduce you guys to how you view situational analysis. Okay, every situational analysis is different. And the goal here is that, one second, the goal here is that you want to make sure that you can figure out a lot of the other things. Okay, when you make choices in life. Some of the choices are really fast. Okay, so again, you know, you're driving down the road, you need gas, and you say to yourself, "Well, I need gas," and all of a sudden you're in a major intersection in the GTA. There's probably like I don't know, like four different gas stations. Okay, Esso, Shell. Okay, there's on the north side, northeast side Esso, southeast side Shell. Um, Northwest side you have Husky, and then southwest you have Petro. Okay, the reality is that to go out of the way if you're driving north to go to Husky and Petro, it does take a lot more thinking because you have to go to the next intersection, do a U-turn, might be dangerous, okay, and then go back and then do another U-turn down below and then come back only for the deal, okay? Maybe you have Petro points or you're really you're into the Petro lifestyle. I'm not sure, but sometimes you may just say to yourself, well, who has a better price? Well, nobody really because they're they work as an oligopoly of some sort. They have a cartel where they keep the price the same, but maybe the service is different. Okay, maybe accommodation is different. Okay, so there's a reason why you have four different gas stations. Competition is very important, but also traffic. Okay, because Shell and Esso, they're very busy in the morning because they deal with the morning traffic going northbound, and then southbound when you come back from work, and if you need gas, you can do Shell and Petro. And then the other thinking is that if you're low on gas, but you're about 4 kilometers away from work, possibly leave work after at 5 o'clock and then take gas. Okay, so all these questions come in together, and it's very simple. But when you look at different choices you make, it can be very complex. Okay, for example, why did you choose Seneca? All right, you want personal reputational basis of power. I can give you that, okay? And I've worked in Centennial, I worked in Durham, I worked in Sheridan, I worked in George Brown. I know exactly the choices. So a lot of times, I find that when we talk about how you got to the school you got to, it turns out that you got there as a knee jerk. It's like, did you analyze the teachers? Did you realize that you're going to get me as a teacher? Did you realize that there's a career center? Did you realize that some of you guys been with me last semester with IBS 630, sorry 620, and you realize that the school has a lot of books altogether, a lot of books, a lot of materials, a lot of items, and those items are going to be in place. Okay, so those are going to be an important factor for us, and definitely they play a very critical role on how we make choices. Okay, and of course, sometimes you don't want to make a choice. And the reason why you don't want to make a choice is that you're very scared of what the future has. You make a really bad choice, it can cost you. And I'm not going to lie, education is very important. It's probably, in my opinion, based on the fact that you spend, 2, 3 years of your life at school, based on, the income that you could have gotten, plus the income of potential, plus the income that you're spending. You put that together, and I would say, school education, post-secondary education is probably the second or third biggest investment you're going to do in your life. Okay, so you have to really take care of it. You have to really make sure it makes sense for you, and definitely create the real world problematic situations. Okay, to be honest with you, okay, and I mentioned to a few of you guys last semester, I'm not just your wonderful teacher. I used to be a student like you guys. I used to be at Seneca, and as you can see, I have an appointment today, but I'm in my office, okay, and my home office has books, and one of the books I'm looking at the top here, I did marketing, I guess 105, marketing 100, at Seneca, which some of you guys took. That book is irrelevant right now to real world situations, okay? So you can actually imagine, I have a book from 1998, okay, 1998. Back then, we hardly ever got a CD-ROM. And now CD-ROMs are obsolete. There was no websites. There was nothing. Okay. They just gave us a floppy disk. They put like 20 files on it, and that's it. All right. And we hardly used it. Okay. So a lot of times we took the floppy disk, we took our pens, we switched it, we formatted it, and now we have a new floppy disk we can use. Okay. But to be honest with you, a lot of these case studies in that book, when I review it, they have nothing to do with the situation, okay? Because a lot of things are obsolete. They have, questions about companies that do not exist, situations where we don't use it anymore, okay? So, if I was to ask you, do a rain check. It's like, what is a rain check? Hardly anybody does rain checks anymore, okay? We don't talk about inventory. We don't talk about the internet. There's no such thing as applications. Okay. So, in the last 20, 25 years, a lot of things changed. Okay. And because they changed, we have to adapt to it. Okay. So you can actually imagine that there is somebody sitting down in a company saying that we're good today. However, I cannot promise you tomorrow. Okay. And there's only two people that do that. The only two people that do that is, of course, the CEO, because the CEO has to have a game plan. And like sports again, so I'm bringing sports again. I know you guys love me for sports, and I will support you guys up the whole summer. But when you look at the NBA, people are being fired right now. Okay, left, right, and center. They're being fired because they do not take a good situation. One of my favorite coaches got fired. Doc Rivers, the Philadelphia 76ers, got fired, which is actually good. Depends on how you see it. If you're a Toronto Raptors fan, I definitely would love to see that wonderful, coach in the Raptors, but it's still up to debate. Okay, and the reason why he got fired was sustainability. Okay, the team was up to par with real world situations. They had an immense amount of people. They had Embiid, they had Harden, they had everybody. Yet they always crash on the second round. Okay. So the question is, do they do this real world scenarios in the franchise? Absolutely. Every single day, they talk about who's coming up, who's not, who's in the farm system. It's not just our perspective because we're one perspective. It's the whole league's perspective. Okay. You have 30 different competitors around you. All right. They don't just sit there saying, congratulations, fellow nemesis, you won the NBA title. Good. But at the end of the day, you also realize that you have other people. You have other people making strategies. Okay. So even the worst teams right now are thinking about the next 5 years. Okay. Some teams rip apart their teams altogether. They, they take a risk, lose 2 good seasons. They're below par, but being below par means you have opportunities to draft new players. And maybe your scouts thought, hey, listen, this particular individual, Victor Ayambo, the Nigerian French superstar. This individual is the best thing that hopefully to come to the NBA in a long time. Okay. And definitely, a team like the San Antonio Spurs did a analysis and realized, hey, listen, it's really be bad this season, and then next season we can draft a superstar. Okay, so these are situations that come in where a company gives up something and another company does something. So coming back, and I'll just quickly mention to you what happened with the case with the that I gave you with the high school and the meal plan. It turns out that they actually cut corners. Okay, they actually cut corners. They cannot control the price. No, they didn't use the new caterer because again, status quo is important. And if somebody gives you a good product, for example, they're a vendor. If you cut the vendor off and go to a new vendor, and the new vendor cannot deliver, that's the problem. Okay, so the new vendor that was persuading the teacher to join the company, they don't have any credibility. And that's the problem. Okay, so you don't want to take that risk. Okay, but you do want to create sustainability. Okay, so what happened here is that you had to cut corners. Okay, you have to do some furrow cuts and maintain the budget at $8,000. Okay, and the reason why I use that case study for you guys is that this scenario is very, very important to some scenarios that we will have in the future. Okay, sometimes you're going to be a project manager, and what's going to happen is that the project cost. I'm just throwing a number here, $800,000, but your companies give you a $500,000, $500,000. Okay, I don't know how to do it for $500,000. It's impossible. Okay. So it becomes a huge dilemma. And you cannot just say, listen, I did the numbers, I did the analysis. Doesn't look like we can do it for this much. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is that they won't take you very seriously because they'll think, hey, you cannot do it for that budget. Okay. So you have to, think outside the box and figure out how, without, ruining the customer experience, your experience, the company's experience, and the holders experience. How can you make it for $500,000? Okay. Think outside the box, be creative, write down a rich view presentation, and then deliver it to me. All right. Does anyone have any further questions for me about the class or anything that we discussed today? Anything that I can